Zen Buddhism and Nestorianism. Series 27. The Succession to the Sixth Patriarch. Chinese Zen Buddhism did not show significant development from its founder, Bodhidharma, who arrived in Guangzhou, Guangdong Province, China, at the age of over 150, and then spent 9 years facing a wall in a cave attached to the Shaolin Temple on Mount Potou in Henan Province, before passing away at the age of over 160 to its fourth patriarch, Daoxin, who is said to have propagated the teachings to hermits on Mount Potou in Hubei Province. However, it experienced rapid growth under the sixth patriarch, Huineng, who inherited the teachings of the fifth patriarch, Hongren. This time, let's explore the circumstances surrounding the succession of the sixth patriarch. Body is the Bodhi tree. During the Zhenguan period of Emperor Taizong, when the Tang dynasty was at its peak, the fifth patriarch Hongren, the abbot of Daoxin Temple, or Huangmeishan Temple of Huangmei District, Qizhou, Hubei Province in China, one day told all his disciples to write a gatha poem on the temple's southern passage wall for him to choose the sixth patriarch. Venerable Shenxiu, the head monk, soon wrote a gatha for Hongren, which read: Body is the Bodhi tree, heart is like a standing mirror bright. Strive to polish it constantly, and let no dust alight. Hongren told the rest of his disciples, light incense, pay respect to this gatha, and practice according to this gatha. However, privately, Hongren told Shenxiu, you have arrived at the gate, but haven't entered. Hongren asked Shenxiu to compose another gatha that demonstrated a true understanding. Nothing's there initially. While Shenxiu was still thinking about his second verse, Huineng, a young illiterate novice, working for the rice mill in the temple, composed a gatha, and had it written on the wall, next to Shenxiu's. It read as follows: Bodhi is no tree, nor standing mirror bright. Since nothing's there initially, where does the dust alight? When Hongren came and saw it, he was very impressed. However, he just said casually, this hasn't seen the essential nature either, and proceeded to wipe the gatha off. But from then on, Hongren received Huineng in his abode, and expounded the Diamond Sutra to him. Hongren, having finished Huineng's intensive training, gave him a robe and begging bowl, as symbols of the Dharma seal of sudden enlightenment, and ordered him to flee south, in order to avoid the envy of others. Thereafter, Northern Chan Buddhism succeeded the doctrines of Shenxiu's gradualism, and Southern Chan Buddhism succeeded the doctrines of Huineng's Subitism. Both schools flourished in China. Shenxiu and Huineng's gathas were both sides of the same coin, and referred to the same enlightenment. Therefore Hongren was just in his dealings. There is no difference between the enlightenment of the northern and southern Chans. There is always only one sudden enlightenment. But even after enlightenment, one will still suffer from worldly desires, and will need to polish the mirror in his heart constantly, in order that no dust alights thereon. Without practice and diligence, there can never be enlightenment. Sequence of 4-star General Ming's renouncement of the world. Now, at Daoxin Temple, there was a senior monk named Chen Huiming. Judging from his title, as a fourth-rank general, before he became a monk, he seems to have been a fairly high-ranking military officer. However, the strong-willed and simple Huiming grew weary of the intrigues and power struggles of court politics, and military service, which sometimes required him to resort to harsh extortion. He became a monk, but even after more than 10 years of training, he was still unable to attain enlightenment, and was tormented by his fate. However, when he learned that Huineng, a novice monk, who had been in charge of threshing the rice, had secretly received the seal of approval from the 5th patriarch to become the 6th patriarch, and run away, senior monk Huineng came to his senses, and, without hesitation, used his strong legs to pursue Huineng, finally catching up with him at Daoxin, located on the border between Jiangxi and Guangdong provinces. Think neither good nor evil. Huineng saw Huiming coming. He thought, Huiming, a warrior of unparalleled strength, must have pursued him, to seize back the robe and begging bowl. He threw out the robe and bowl on a rock, and said, "This robe represents the Buddha's teaching. We can't compete for it. Take it. It's yours." However, Huiming asked Huineng, "I came for the Dharma, not for the robe. Please expound the Dharma for me." Then Huineng said in a loud voice, "Think neither good nor evil. Before your parents were born, at that very moment, what was Venerable Ming's original face? Your intrinsic nature." Right then, Huiming sweated the whole body, and came to enlightenment. He worshipped Huineng with tears in his eyes, and asked again, besides the intimate words and meaning that struck home of a moment ago, "Is there any further intimate message?" Huineng said, "If it were said to you, it wouldn't be intimate. If you turn around and reflect, what's intimate is not in my words, but within you. The gateless barrier, case 23. If you return to the beginning, where the Word was with God, and the Word was God." Gospel of John chapter 1, verses 1-2. In other words, return to the original face. Before the parents were born, you can say, "Holy am I alone, throughout heaven and earth. Grass, trees, and the domains of all living things, all attain Buddhahood. It is the ultimate salvation. You can obtain eternal life, and know that the kingdom is within you, and it is outside you." The succession to the 6th patriarch. A tonsure ceremony of a young man was held at Faxingxi Temple, in Guangzhou, Guangdong Province of China, on the 15th of January in 676 AD, the 3rd year of Shangyuan period of Emperor Gaozong of the Tang dynasty. And a grand ordination ceremony was held on the 8th of February, inviting famous Buddhist discipliners from nationwide and abroad, such as Zhiguang of Xian, Huijing of Suzhou, Tongying of Jingzhou, Chiduo Luo of Central India, and Master Tripitaka Miduo of Turkestan, as a master of ordination, a master of karma, a professor, a teacher of precepts, and a witness of ordination respectively. In this way, the succession to the 6th patriarch of Zen Buddhism, since Bodhidharma had transmitted the mind seal to China by the lad named Huineng, was realized. Fulfillment of prophecy by two Master Tripitakas. Dating back from this 256 years ago, in 420 AD, during the era of Emperor Wu of Song, in the Wei, Jin, and Southern and Northern dynasties period, Indian Master Tripitaka Gunabhadra prophesied. A bodhisattva in flesh will receive the full precepts at this altar in the future, when he built a Buddhist ordination platform here, and 176 years ago, in 502 AD, that is, the first year of Tianjian, the era name of Emperor Wu of Liang dynasty, another Indian master Tripitaka Zhiyue, planted 2 Bodhi trees here, and prophesied. A bodhisattva in flesh will be coming here, and will preach, under the trees, and save abundant sentient beings, after 170 years later. He will be the savior of the world, conveying the mind seal of Buddha. Now their prophecies were fulfilled. And even today, after over 1,000 years, the 7-story tower, built in the precincts of the temple, is said to still contain Huineng's hair. Although Huineng was only a young 39 years old street hawker of firewood, in the town of Guangzhou, until then, he shoved many high priests aside, and suddenly succeeded to the 6th patriarch of Zen Buddhism in China. Therefore, the tonsure and ordination ceremonies of Huineng are said to have been a landmark incident in the history of Chinese Buddhism, just like Jesus, the son of a Nazarene carpenter, suddenly appeared alone on the banks of the Jordan River, and was baptized by John the Baptist. Gospel of Mark chapter 1, verse 9. Gospel of Matthew chapter 3, verse 13. And made a debut to the religious society of Jerusalem, with testimony of John in Bethany. Jesus, too, is said to have been in his mid-30s at that time. Gospel of Luke chapter 3, verse 23. The origins of Southern Subitism and Northern Gradualism. Perhaps Zen Buddhism was brought into China, through both land and sea routes, during the Wei, Jin, and Southern and Northern dynasties period, by multiple evangelists. Then, Northern Gradualism sect, which emphasized practice, advocating the doctrine of Zen and scriptures are one, and Southern Subitism sect, which advocated freedom of scriptures, and no establishment of words and letters, flourished in the central plains of China, under the rule of northern dynasties, and southern China, ruled by southern dynasties respectively. And later, Emperor Wu of Liang dynasty, who is known as the most enthusiastic royal patronage of Buddhism, among the southern dynasties, and Bodhidharma's confrontation, seems to have been arranged as a spectacle to adorn the first page of Zen Buddhism history in China. In the central plains of China, where several dynasties established by different non-Chinese ethnic groups rose and fell, because rulers often implemented policies to abolish Buddhism, there was no significant development of Zen Buddhism, from the first ancestor Bodhidharma, the second patriarch Huiku, the third patriarch Senkan, and until the fourth patriarch Daoxin. However, when Tang dynasty unified the whole of China, especially after Emperor Gaozong's empress, Wu Zetian, seized real power of court of Tang dynasty, Zen Buddhism grew rapidly, under the fifth patriarch Hongren in the Central Plains too. What's interesting is that, the succession ceremony, for the sixth patriarch, was held at Faxing Temple in Guangdong Province, not at Daoxin Temple in Hubei Province. Furthermore, despite the invitation of numerous high-ranking monks, from Xi'an in Shaanxi Province, Suzhou in Jiangsu Province, Jingzhou in Hubei Province, and even from central India and the western regions, the crucial fifth patriarch, Master Hongren, was absent. It seems that, the story of the shaving and ordination ceremony, for the young Huineng, at Faxing Temple, and the succession of the sixth patriarch, at Daoxin Temple, were later combined. In any case, the fact that, high-ranking monks were invited, not only from all over China, but also from India and the western regions, to the shaving and ordination ceremony of a mere firewood seller, suggests that, complex political and religious dynamics, comparable to those surrounding Jesus' religious debut in Jerusalem, were at play. Virgin birth. By the way, the fifth patriarch Hongren's surname is said to be Zhou. But this is his mother's surname, and there is no record regarding his father. According to the legend, he was a reincarnation of a hermit of Mount Potou, who had crawled into his mother's womb. When the fourth patriarch Daoxin, settled down, in Mount Potou of Huangmeixian, in modern Hubei Province. A hermit, the lord of the mountain, also asked him to become his pupil. Daoxin answered him, I cannot allow 100-over-years-old hermit to become my pupil. However, if you are reborn, and ask me again, I may accept you. The disappointed hermit went down the mountain to the village. He saw a girl washing by a brook. He remembered what Daoxin had said, if you are reborn and ask me again, I may accept you. Then he immediately asked the girl, can you put me up? The girl replied, if you do not mind a ragged, please put up. Then hermit cheekily crawled into her womb. When the girl's belly became bigger, her parents put away their nefarious daughter. In the fullness of time, she was delivered of a boy. People called the boy, who begged from door to door, with his mother, nameless brat. When this boy became 7 years old, Daoxin saw him on the street of Huangmeixian, and asked the boy, what is your name? The boy answered, my name is Buddha Nature. Daoxin fell in love with this boy, and asked his mother to let the boy become his disciple, without the faintest idea that the boy was a reincarnation of the hermit of Mount Potou. The mother consented to his request, to take her son as his disciple. Then the boy became a monk at Huangmeixian Daoxin Temple. This nameless brat is said to have later become the 5th patriarch Hongren. This story is not only reminiscent of virgin birth of Jesus, but also implies the possibility that Hongren was Daoxin's own son, just as Mark, the author of the Gospel of Mark, is suspected Jesus' own son, because his mother, Salome Mary, the owner of the house where the Last Supper was held, shared the bed and the dining table with Jesus, according to the Gospel of Thomas.